Greetings, I present to you the SMK, the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope, on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph, Ontario, online at CFRU.ca, syndicating across Canada, and right here on CFRU's YouTube channel. I am your guardian overseer, Nicholas Cooper. We will be looking inward and beyond along the branches of progressive, fusion, and alternative genres, fractal anomalies, and other unique discoveries near and far. Join me as we gaze into the audible lens out of the diverse musical landscape on the ever-changing horizon. The following feature contains some subject matter that might not be suitable for all sentient beings. As a safe disclosure, viewer discretion is advised. Welcome, my good sentries, to a brand new audience far from the Observational Tower, the music interview series I do here on the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope, broadcasting here from CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph, Ontario, through the web on CFRU.ca and syndicating across Canada, as well as CFRU's YouTube channel. Today, through Zoom communications, we're skewed the focus, the audible lens, on a Toronto-based multidisciplinary artist who is about to release new music under a new music project. Welcome, Peter Gorski.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
How are you doing today?
Generally pretty well. I've had a pretty eventful day. Lots of going out and doing some shopping. I helped my mom buy a car earlier today. It's been a day.
How was it, the experience buying a car during this COVID-19 pandemic?
I mean, you have a little bit more leverage because they're looking a little bit more for customers. So I don't mind haggling. I think it's the Eastern European part of me that I really enjoy haggling. So I got fairly aggressive. I knocked about $1,000 off the price. It was good.
Oh, excellent! What kind of car did you Did your mom get?
Yeah, so she's had really good luck with Kias before. So she ended up with a nice kind of fully loaded Sorento. It's like 4 years old, but it's a pretty badass car. I like kind of old luxury cars. It's been I've had good success with those.
And especially if it's good, reliable, and you want that, especially with older models.
Well, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Where are you currently living? Because I can see for our radio listeners, you have looks like a studio setup right now.
Yeah, so currently I'm up just about an hour's north of Toronto, living with my folks. They have graciously offered me up their basement to create a studio. So I've got a little basement studio going on over here. Not perfect, but it's damn good enough. So yeah, using it to the best I can.
Oh, that's awesome. For your parents to allow you to have the basement for all yourself.
Yeah, they love me.
Excellent. Now, because we are in strange time right now, how have you been coping with the COVID pandemic right now?
Personally, I do very well with alone time, with free time. So I've been gardening. We planted a hell of a lot of tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, a whole bunch of things. I've actually had the time to sift through every one of those 14 tracks and really clean it up as much as I possibly could, which is something I've been wanting to do for quite some time, and I've been doing kind of slowly, but now I got to speed that up and actually set a release date for June 1st.
Awesome. So you're a green thumb gardener. Do you enjoy that a lot?
I very much love nature, yeah. Absolutely. Hopefully it goes well. It's some new soil. We just moved in here last year, so we've never actually done it before.
Testing the grounds.
That's it, exactly.
Well, I guess today it was raining a lot, so that'll help, definitely.
I think so. Yeah. It's been good weather.
Yeah, and you really do, you found it productive being able to work on your music at this time?
Yes, absolutely. I find nighttime is normally my most productive hour, and it's been a little bit absurd. I'm staying up till 5 a.m. at times now, 6 a.m. sometimes.
Whoa, that's
but
intense.
I'm productive as hell, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I definitely can't complain if you're being productive.
I'm a night owl anyway, so owl.
Owl, yes. I know about owls. Has there been any difficulty during this time? Because it is completely thrown a lot of people off their A game, I would say.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of empathy for people who are going through some very intense changes, very different ways of living than they're used to or comfortable with. Personally, like I said, though, I thrive in isolation. I always kind of have. That's how I learned how to do graphics. That's how I learned how to do music. I really enjoy spending time with myself, just being quiet, thinking, reading. So it's good. It's good, but I'm privileged enough that I haven't really faced too many hardships during this whole COVID thing. I did get laid off from my job at Cosmo. It was kind of voluntary, kind of not. However, the CERB payments, those have been pretty damn helpful. I've been getting them promptly. I'm part of the lucky Canadians who get them very easily. My girlfriend, hers are hardly coming. She's gotten her first one. She's struggling to even get somebody on the phone. She's like 3 months behind almost now. So it's I see a lot of people struggling. But no, I'm privileged enough that this is kind of my comfort zone.
Yeah, it is pretty lucky. Like, I know there for myself, I am also a introverted kind of guy, but I've been finding more lately that I've been really missing interaction with other human beings other than the people in my family right now in home.
Mm-hmm. No, it's I consider myself more of an ambivert. I can really thrive being alone, but I do really enjoy socializing. I love communication. I love both on stage through music and just kind of through rhetoric, through speaking. So I will be ecstatic once social life is back to some degree of normalcy. I had a Tool concert planned for April. I was going to go to Montreal for that, but I obviously got shafted for next year probably. Which, fair enough. I was lucky enough to see them twice earlier this year. So.
Oh, awesome! So you're a deep Tool fan.
They are one of my primary influences in terms of sacred geometry, like you've seen through a lot of my fractal stuff. I love the idea of sacred or natural geometry, how everything in the world can kind of be broken down into some mathematical formula. And that kind of, that informs a lot of my visual arts.
Oh yeah, which we'll talk about that later in this interview. But yeah, I just remember now because I'm not I've heard Tool's music. I'm not a deep fan, but I do remember now that a lot of their album artwork has like those geometric patterns.
Absolutely. So Alex Gray is the main artist that they work with. And actually, I have a tattoo of some of his art right here. You'll see it peeking through right there.
Oh, nice.
So he's been one of my main visual inspirations, while the band has been one of my main aural, AURAL, inspirations. So this tattoo is actually something I've wanted for about 15 years. I finally bit the bullet about 2 years ago and put it exactly where I wanted it. But it's kind of it's a representation of the synergy between art, life, psychedelics, and probably a bit of nature in there too. But mostly the art and psychedelic connection is something that's very valuable for me.
Excellent. So another thing I want to ask, because I've been starting to ask artists now with these like Zoom-based long-distance interviews, have you done something completely different at this time that or outrageous that you wouldn't have thought of doing before COVID?
Mm-hmm. Good question. No, I don't think so. I think my strategy for staying sane during this whole time has been kind of more of the same. I've been trying to balance consumption and production in my life best I can. I find that's kind of the key to keeping me happy. So whereas there's much more room for consumption, I'm watching a lot of different series. I'm reading more books. I'm trying to listen to records, to make the whole kind of ritual out of it. But at the same time, I got to flip that over and put as much work into production as I can, songwriting, performance, whatever, mixing, to actually keep me happy. So,
how do you make that balance? How do you plot it out?
It's tricky. It's more, I would say, it's kind of an after the fact ad hoc thing. It's I notice I'm sad. I notice I'm depressed or unfulfilled or something, and I need to kind of get back on course. I need to correct somehow. So it's just like in the moment kind of reaction? It is. I feel like, everybody's life kind of cycles in and out of balance, cycles in and out between chaos and some sort of order. And that's the order I find valuable to kind of shift back into as soon as I feel that chaos coming on. Yeah, I've been finding like
lately it's about like how you feel starting up in the day, like what you like. I like to write stuff like the night before about what I want to accomplish, and sometimes it gets done and sometimes it doesn't, just on feeling.
Yeah, early on, when I was really kind of pushing to figure this album out and finish it and send it off to platforms, I was being a little bit hard on myself on days that I didn't have the energy or the creativity or the capacity to, work through a mix or a master or something. But over time it did come together. I was being a bit hard on myself. I was trying to balance not being hard on myself, but as an artist, especially with this project is something I've been working on for probably about 5 years. This album, I would say, the oldest song on it is about 10 years old. But it's about 4 or 5 years ago that I started recording the tracks for this album here.
Well, that goes way back.
Yeah, it's been and it's a solo project, right? So you have full creative control, which is both a blessing and a curse.
Oh yeah, definitely with that. So we've only been communicating a lot through online, but we did meet once before the pandemic.
That's the last live event I saw before the pandemic.
Yeah, it was at Duffy's Tavern in Toronto in January. I was performing there as Pure Zulvai, as well as Sage's. Sorry, I have my notes here.
Sage's is Astrolope and Astrolope, Sage's,
Aaron Corbett as part of a Jesse Ellercon showcase. Great I really miss them so much.
Oh yeah, I feel you. No, it's that was actually an inspiring show. Like I really, I got introduced to Aaron, who actually very much impressed me. Paul is just always been impressive to me. That dude is multi-talented, multi-skilled, and one of the people I've been very lucky to meet in the past year, partially through Tyson and Splendid Industries and him inviting me out to some of these events. So it's my musical network has expanded a little bit in the last year, which is very, very heartening. And that last show was phenomenal. It was very experimental. It was nicely attended. Everybody was very kind and happy. Lots of dancing. It was great.
Yeah, it was like a very welcoming show with everyone attending and all the different types of experimentation in music. Like I want that, like inspires me to want after this blows over to really get more performances in.
I'd love to see that. Actually, the one thing I regret is I missed you because I think they shuffled the bill around a little bit, and I was expecting you to be on a bit later. And I think I just caught the last bits of your bellowing notes at the end there. And Tyson told me that what he saw was great. Everybody else had great reviews. So I think you did very well, but unfortunately I didn't catch it this time.
Another time.
Yeah.
In the future, yes.
For sure.
So going on from that, I don't know a whole lot about you. So why don't you tell us all just maybe more about your creative background? Because like you are like, as I mentioned before, multidisciplinary artist. Why don't you talk to us about that?
I can. Absolutely. So I've always kind of considered myself a jack of all trades, master of none kind of deal. I am pretty good at a lot of things, masterful, really. It's not much, but that's okay. So I try to balance things out, and I try to add those all together to the biggest sum that they can possibly be. In the past, before I was even a musician, I got into visual arts, digital usually. I've done very little kind of drawing or sketching. I wish I was a bit better at that. But through digital arts, things like Photoshop, Illustrator, I've been doing since about I was 12 or 13. I think I got started. Thank God for pirating software, because I could not have afforded it at that age. And that kind of progressed through time. I got into video editing software. I got a little bit bored in university, so I started my own business, just doing video projects or documents or graphics for people. And that's kind of my visual journey in terms of my visual arts. But in terms of music, I started on the guitar when I was about 13. Probably 2 years after that, I started drumming. I had a drum kit for quite some time. I'm down to just hand drums right now, but one day. And piano, vocals, those all kind of came in the following maybe 5 years. Writing has always been something I've been into ever since I was 12 or 13. I've been really trying to hone my words to be as clear, concise, precise as possible. So it's on this past album, one thing that's frustrated me in the past is not being able to put lyrics to some of the music I've written. It's just been too abstract or too weirdly orchestral or something. So with this project, it was kind of in the midst of like a big breakup I had out of a 7-year-long relationship, and I was in that chaos, so I was trying to find order. And I wanted to write songs. I wanted to actually get poetry down, lyrics down, figure out steady chord progression so I could play it with 10 instrumentalists, or I could play it completely alone. And so that was kind of my struggle there, because I had a band. We were together for almost 10 years, probably about 7-8 years too. And that fell apart right around the same time that my 7-year-long relationship fell apart. So it was this big time of rediscovery, of reimagining myself, refinding myself in that
especially
band.
Especially from all that breaking down.
Right. So
stuff.
You're kind of forced to find something again. And in that band, I always felt like I was, again, a jack of all trades, but everybody else was probably a slightly better musician than me if I were really to kind of think of it logically. I had a lot of other roles in the band, and I'm still a pretty decent musician, but I always felt like a little bit on the bottom of that band in terms of musical ability. So it was kind of like figuring out, am I actually a musical artist? Can I actually do this? And so that's what this album has kind of been, is me getting past that imposter syndrome and being like, no, I am an artist. I have to offer.
Yeah, proving to yourself that you have made some like great work.
Exactly. Yeah. That's another thing is I wanted. It was a bit maybe foolhardy to start with a 14-track album. I was going to ask you, like, why 14 tracks? I grew up with full-on albums. You know, it's not really the way of the world anymore. Singles maybe perform better. You know, you can kind of pimp them out a bit better. But I always respected a full-on album and a full-on concept, and I wanted to have like a magnum opus, kind of something that I could release first and be at least undeniable to some sense, maybe to myself, maybe to some others if I'm lucky enough. But I did want to release that big thing first to kind of prove to myself I could.
Like maybe like a meteor striking and getting lots of attention.
Exactly. Ideally, if it doesn't happen that way, if the attention is a little bit lackluster, I'm still okay with that, to be honest, because I'm proud of that work. I think there's something formidable there that I threw out. So it'll live beyond me.
Mm-hmm. You did talk about Tool as being an influence in music. What other like music styles have you has influenced your music that you've composed right now?
Oh, absolutely. So on this album currently on Recursive Light, it's actually a two-parter. It's going to be a two-parter. I've got a lot of the songs completed for the second part already too.
All right, sorry. I guess we should mention, what is your solo artist name?
So it's Basal, and that's spelled Basal, and pronounced Bay, S-U, like kind of Basal. What that means is basically it's describing something that forms the bottom or base layer of something. And I found that an interesting concept visually in terms of audio and stacking audio, in terms of songwriting and stacking parts. So that was a name that kind of resonated with me, and I looked around. I put a little thing on the A to kind of give it a little bit of flair. And not many people have used it. I was able to get the Bandcamp, basal.bandcamp.com, so I was happy enough with that. And I was trying to figure out if I wanted to release this as Peter Gorski or if I wanted to release it under a project name, but I decided to go with the project name in the end.
Nice. Maybe at this time, it'll be the first for these Zoom interview series right now. Would you like to perform for us?
I can absolutely do that, yeah. So the first one that I'm going to play, probably going to perform maybe 2 now and then 1 at the end, I think.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So these 2 are going to be the first 2 on the album, although I'm going to reverse the order. Both in the same key, too, so I'll see if I can kind of make them transition interestingly.
Oh, nice.
But this first one is called Sharper, and that's going to lead into another one called Serve. I tried to make each of these songs kind of solid enough that I can explain the concept behind them. Sharper is really about the very politically divided, polarized times that we currently live in, and some sort of metaphysical answer to that towards the end. It's kind of like a problem-solution thing. It's got about 4 verses, so I really like some songs that have plenty of verses in the past, and so I want to challenge myself with one of those. And then the second one is called Serve, and that's about the rigidity of the education system and how it leads to rigidity in society. That's the best way I could probably describe that one.
Excellent. So I'll mute myself so we can concentrate on you. Good centuries. Here is Basal here on the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, here we go. Everybody's gotten sharper, not in the brains, just in the blades. Superficially the same, against a character to blame, explain away, entertain. It's a certain type of hell, an all too certain type of game. When it's predator and prey, your bandage and your blade. Everybody's gotten witty. Oh, we lost our shame, we become vain. Ridiculous and pretty. Ridiculous beyond restraint. It's a certain size of cell. It's a possessive kind of state. When we let ideas own us and get married to their names. Now I don't know what I knew before. That's how I stay out of the war. Everybody is a pity, gift-given tragedy and shame. Walking blindly in the city. Dizzy, stumbling and lame. It's a certain tone of bell. Oh, it's a ringing that I can't shake. The crack is splitting through the center. The ringing's driving me insane. Now I don't know what I knew before. That's how I stay out of the war. Now I don't think what I thought before. Now I don't blink when I see a soul. That's how I stay out of the war. That's how I stay out of the war. Everybody could get better, Draw the lines and find their place, closer with the contoured center. Slow the spiral to a sway. Slow the spiral to a sway. We're all made of the same matter, so don't we matter all the same? Alrighty, so that's number one. And yeah, that's a song I wrote. Really, I think that first line is what spawned the whole thing. Everybody's gotten sharper, not in their brains, just in their blades. And that's a line that I wrote. I'm like, oh goddamn, that's a good one. I can use that to kind of inspire an entire song. So I'm glad that one turned out eventually. And the second one is the one I mentioned about the education system. I was lucky enough that the education system kind of worked for me, but I think for a lot of people, it really screws them over. And I was seeing a girl at the time who was telling me her tragic story about school, being put in a gifted program and then like a few years later being yanked out of it, and just the confusion. And then she ended up kind of doing horribly in school after being told she was gifted at first. And that kind of inspired me to start this song. And then at some point it kind of morphed into a song for anybody who's had trouble with school, which is probably everybody to some degree. So this one's called Serve. And it's also inspired by an author, ex-teacher, recently passed away last year, called John Taylor Gatto. We could talk about it maybe a bit after. So this was Serve. Child, gifted then burned, told to think things, not taught how to learn. A brand new mind, tongue twisted then turned, told to think things, not taught how to learn. It's a jungle vibe, so you try not to get burned. Don't speak out of rotation for how you serve the machine, 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 for how you serve the. Join your line, single file, not a word. Oh, this is your education. Join your line, it'll be fine, not a word. Oh, this is your education for how you serve your machine. For how you serve the machine. Let's see what we think you'll be. Let's see what we think you'll be. Squared circles cut clean. Oh my darling, believe it, they just can't see. Clever as a flower, just breathe in, you'll supersede it, and do the real thing, and do the real thing. Oh my darling, believe it, they just can't see. Clever as a flower, just breathe in, you'll soon receive it. And do the real thing, and do the real thing.
You're listening to the SMK, the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope, on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph, Ontario, on the web at cfru.ca, and syndicating across Canada. We just finished listening to Basal, aka Peter Gorski, with two incredible songs. Like, I really liked your playing and singing, Peter.
Thank you. No, it's I love performing because you can get lost in it. Once you kind of have the mechanics of what's going on down, you can kind of get into the words, get into the feel of the song, and yeah, I love performance. I always felt at home performing.
Yeah, I really like your voice intonation in the way you say the lyrics or way you sing them.
Thank you.
And then also, I was taking some notes while you're playing. For Sharper, I like it was like quick, like harmonic dissonance, very quickly, like little
there's
clashes.
Some diminished chords in there. There's and those are both in there.
And then I really like the harmonic progression of Serve.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I guess that's a very topical themes to the songs. Are most of your songs like that?
Yeah, I do. Again, with this album, I tried to make the concepts for the songs a bit more solid. There's this philosopher that I listen to sometimes. Is named Alain de Botton. And he has this very interesting talk on atheism 2.0, which seems left field, but I'll connect it. Hold on. Okay. So basically, in this talk, he's kind of talking about the old Nietzsche quote that God is dead. And a lot of people are thinking God is dead. He's like reveling in that. He's happy God is dead. But but in his context, he's worried. He's saying that there's nothing really in society to replace what God provided to people, or what church provided to people. Maybe a place to congregate and think about forgiveness, or think about empathy, or, in the best of times, at least. But no, church does. He kind of cautions that society, and I am an atheist or agnostic myself, depending on what day you ask me, but he cautions that society shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, that there is a lot of space that needs to be taken for congregations to think about serious issues, think about forgiveness, to think about politics or apolitical topics, or to think about education or whatever it might be. But so he thought that art should take that place, that if religion's not going to cut it anymore for a lot of people, that art should do that. And he kind of had this thought experiment that it would be interesting if a museum had rooms based on emotion. Like, this is the forgiveness room, go in there to reflect on forgiveness. Or this is the love room, go in there and reflect on your love. So that's kind of the concept I tried to push with these songs, that they do have a definable message.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's also interesting about like art having a more prominent like role in society, like nowadays.
Absolutely. The music I enjoy the most in my life, it does help me reflect on my life. We talked a little bit about Tool before. There's an album they have called Lateralis. And for example, the first two tracks, The Grudge and The Patient, The Grudge is about holding a grudge and how it weighs you down, and how it's feeling leaden, and how it can be transmorphed into some sort of gold if you get past the grudge. And then The Patient is about patience. It's I must keep reminding myself of this, be patient. That's a mantra in that whole, that's the track. So I think the music I've gravitated to in the past has that kind of, that feature, that there's a reason for it that's fairly clear for me. There's definitely times for storytelling lyrics, and some of my other favorite artists might do a little bit more of that. But I do like the reflection on some sort of philosophical or psychological topic.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I guess the best music for an individual person has a way to initiate a personal thought process to the reflection you were talking about, to try and reason what's going on around a person, and either try and understand it, or to even accept it and try to better oneself.
Exactly. I hope that a lot of art and more art in the future plays towards that understanding or that humanity or that empathy. I hope more artists focus that direction.
Mm-hmm. And especially right now during this pandemic, the art community has been taking a real blow, and it's also a time where lots of creative people are finding art to be a surviving
lifeline.
Yeah. So I hope we can support the arts more in whatever way whatever way is possible for us right now.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting seeing the fallout from this whole pandemic play out. But in the arts community, I think it might strengthen our resolve in terms of smaller community-based things. I think I've never been more eager to go see local shows. Before the pandemic, we were doing this thing. I know you know Tyson, obviously, but he invited me to this group of musicians. Paul Astrolope is one of them, and Jesse, who you had on the program last week, he's another one of them. But we basically get together in a garage, play each other our unfinished tracks, and give each other notes, comments, criticisms. Maybe we ask a question before we play the track. But basically, it's this kind of artist feedback support system that's just very beautiful. I'm very glad to have been able to be a part of it.
Or that's Good Listener, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's what it's called. Yeah. I've heard of it, and I've wanted to actually also participate in that. And that's a good thing. Also, maybe if listeners want to do something similar like that, find their local community artists and share their art and get feedback. That's the best way to evolve and get feedback from other people.
I think usually you'll find other people are less hard on you than you are on yourself, and there's often a lot of very valuable advice that goes quite a long way when you get back home and you decide to work on that mix or record another part for it or something.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to Basal and the basic fundamental I don't know how I would say it. You've already said what the name means and the significance. Right. I guess more in the music, because right now you're playing your songs acoustically, but from videos and music online that's already available at this moment of the recording, it's a mixture of psychedelia, folk, electronic. Tyson actually just said had written a post saying that it's futuristic folk. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe your musical style?
That's probably the hardest question for me. But yeah, the way I've kind of come to describe it is it does interweave in between some sort of neo folk or future folk. Dyson coined that one, or at least brought it into play here. I have to look a bit more into that one, but definitely some variation of folk. I'm very inspired by Timber Timbre lately, a beautiful Ontario band. But so that's where that maybe comes from. At the same time, there's some heavy guitars at parts of the album. The next album is going to be the heavy one, but there's still a couple heavy bits in this one. And that's a bit more from that kind of alt hard rock, kind of psychedelic hard rock, Tool influence that definitely comes through at some points. But on this current album, it's kind of songwriters that have influenced me the most. John Frusciante's solo stuff outside of the Red Hot Chili Peppers is super experimental. It's very, very just kind of unique. And that first song, Sharper, some of those chords actually stole from him. Those diminished chords he mentioned. I just kind of reorganized everything into my own song slowly. But John Frusciante has been a huge influence. Songwriters like Tom York have been a huge influence for me here. Both the final albums of Leonard Cohen and David Bowie, when I was starting off writing all this stuff, those were really big for me. So I would say, yeah, somewhere in electronic, orchestral, neo folk, alt rock, it's there. I can't boil it down to one cohesive thing, I don't think.
I think the best music can't be pigeonholed into one style. So the album that you'll be releasing is called Recursive. Why did you name it that?
So recursivity is a concept that is prevalent both, I think, especially in my visual art. The concept of recursivity in fractals, the fact that you can just keep zooming in and it just keeps getting into smaller iterations of the same thing, and it's kind of infinite. Same thing with human language. You can do infinite recursion. You can say the cat in the hat who lived in the house that was blue ate a mouse that was green that lived on pumpkins for a year. You can keep going forever. I think that's an important thing to be aware of, is the concept of recursivity. And I was actually listening to CBC Radio 1 at some time when I was thinking about what to call this album, and there was a guest speaker on there talking about the concept of recursivity. So I think that's when I kind of solidified, I don't know, with fractals, with my lyricism, with how I can play and take that in whatever directions I could want or imagine, it all kind of fits there. So the recursive volume 1 light would be this one, which is volume 1. Recursive volume 2 will be, I think, late this year, and that's shadow. So light and shadow, kind of yin and yang, back and forth. So the other one's going to be much more heavy, a little bit less philosophical, and
more into the gritty and
definitely a lot more of the emotions that you see reflecting in the world around us lately. A bit more of that anger, not hate, but a little bit more of that anger. There's a big difference there.
Maybe then also maybe a bit of that anxiety as well.
Absolutely. Some of that is reflected in this album for sure. I think the anxiety, like this album I allowed myself to get a bit more vulnerable. There's songs. There's 2 songs, one right after each other. Grass Dancer, which I think you played an early demo on your show.
Yes, I did.
Maybe a year ago. So that was actually that made me very happy, because that was one of the songs I'm most proud of on there. And then that song is kind of about me at the beginning of the writing process, feeling still stuck in kind of ideas about the past, my past band, my past relationships, whatever it might be, and just kind of feeling stuck there. Whereas the next song after that, Sweetgrass, is about finding a bit more independence. It's about kind of breaking free of that anecdote that, that's you, that's your story.
Awesome. Let us now talk a bit about the visual part of your multidisciplinary artistic world, which you were mentioning with the recursive topic. So you're that project's called Fractal Sound, and that's where I got to know you more on that side. So let me ask first, why fractal geometry as the main visual component of your work there?
Drugs. But realistically, it's a lot of that kind of underlying geometry. A bit more curious when they when they end up on a bit of cannabis and psychedelics about the inner structures of the math around us. And Tool is a band, especially the drummer, Danny Carey, is hugely into sacred or natural geometry. He lays his drum kit around based on like geometrical positioning, his Mandela electronic drum pad. So a lot of the influence definitely came from there. That's, yeah. So fractals, it's something that I found there's some sort of innate draw to them. Humans can kind of look at them and be like, that looks strangely familiar. I don't know why that looks strangely familiar, but that looks strangely familiar. And I do think that there's some sort of innate understanding or familiarity we have with those kind of visuals.
Well, it's like it's a fascinating like phenomenon.
Right, even subconsciously, you might not even kind of realize why, but no, you've seen that pattern in a fern before. You've seen that pattern in an octopus before. You've seen, there's so many. Even like that first music video I released, originally called A Brief Intermission. I shortened it to Intermission. But that the similarities of different shapes that people have told me, they see skulls, they see like sea creatures, they see brains. Obviously, I think that's the main ones I see. They see trees, nature, leaves. It's very cool to see how many different things people can see in them.
Remembering that video, I think for me it looked like a coral cavern.
That's beautiful. I like that.
So how do you make these images, these fractal images, and make them go into motion like you do?
So there's a open source software anybody can download. It's called Mandelbulb 3D. And essentially some beautiful programmers have decided to experiment with how to take how to take parameters and how to take equations and translate them into a 3D fractal shape. So the program is a lot of combining different equations, plugging in different numbers, using sliders to just tweak those numbers a little bit and see how that changes the shape, that you can move the cameras around. And just like a lot of different animation softwares, it's keyframe based. So you say from keyframe 1 to keyframe 30, I want the camera to move from here to here. And I want the fractal to go from this crazy geometric thing to this crazy geometric thing. And then you kind of see how that plays out over 30 frames, decide if you want to keep it that long, make it shorter, longer, whatever. And it's a lot of experimentation until you start to understand some of the formulas and how they'll interact with each other. But it's a fascinating program. I do more traditional stuff too. I've done more traditional animation stuff, but the fractals have just kind of always called me back.
You must also be good at math then.
Maybe it's the nice thing about this program is you don't have to be good at math. Like the equations are there and they have the variables listed, so you can plug the numbers in as whatever variables you want and see how it just kind of translates visually. So even if you're not good at math, you can still kind of get a sense of how things might work and experiment with it and go forward like that. It takes forever to render. Like a second probably takes multiple hours to render of animation. But one day I'll buy a $3,000, $4,000 computer and then it'll probably get cut down in 10.
It go much smoother then.
Well, I hope so. Rendering is the worst.
Yeah, I bet. So I want to quickly mention, because we've been talking about them in this interview, and I have been talking about it in my radio programming, Splendid Industries, which is a like Toronto-based but more like Ontario-wide weirdo music community. That's how we got connected with one another. This has happened.
Absolutely.
How did you get involved with it?
So Tyson is the guy who runs Splendid Industries for the most part. He's been the guy who's networked and organized all these artists together. He's put on one very successful, I think, very awesome show that I was glad to be a part of, As Fractal Sound. I got to do kind of the visual backdrops or splashes over Animatist, over Future Machines, over over some very impressive musicians, including Tyson's band as well, Dust of Binary and Yumster. I think they had to change their name shortly before that because the other one Facebook didn't like. So that's been beautiful. Tyson, I met through working at Cosmo Music with him. Both of us work selling PA equipment, microphones, studio equipment. He'd been there for about 6 years before I even got there, and I've been there for about 4 years now. Tyson has been talking about organizing this community for years before he actually put the pedal to the metal about last year and actually made it all happen, which I'm very impressed by. Actually, it's
incredible.
Very cool the network he's been able to grow.
Yeah, it's great that he's been able to find all these amazing artists and being able to connect together. It's pretty strong right now. There's lots of potential for it to grow, which is the question I want to ask you: how Splendid Industries can improve and evolve in the future.
The live performance aspect of it's frustrating right now, obviously, because we can't do it. But I think that's something that really drives Tyson. Is he wants to see those shows happen. He wants to see there to be a market in Toronto for interesting experimental music. And I'm just happy to be a part of any of those events. But I would love to see more events, more interesting events. I've pitched him a few of my little off-bat ideas. But no, unfortunately for the current time, I think live events would be great. If we need to kind of temper that, Tyson and I have discussed doing things like live video shoots, where it's more so just a live performance by band, no audience, if we need to do it that way. So we're trying to, him and I are trying to figure out how to move forward, me helping him with Splendid Industries as much as I can.
Yeah, and I've also been hearing his ideas and offering my own ideas in my own way, and like something like this, like through Zoom, long distance, would also be a good idea, like for this current time.
It's an interesting it's interesting seeing all the innovations kind of popping out of the artistic world. Yesterday, I was part of a live stream event called Exit Points, and I just jumped in the last minute to try to throw some visuals their way. It kind of came out at the stream pretty choppy, so it wasn't the best. But all the musicians all kind of contributed like ambient soundscapes. Not everything is timed perfectly, obviously, so you can't really do rigid music. You can't do music that's to like a solid tempo because there's always delays in transmission through Zoom or whatever. So it's more so been focused on like this soundscapey kind of experimental ambience. And Tyson was a part of that yesterday. He played some bass tracks for it. Lex Metcalf, you might know as Fela.
Of Wax Limbs, that will be more exactly. That we... Yeah,
so they were a part of the broadcast yesterday. Curtis Whitaker, I believe his name is, who Tyson has previously jammed with as well. So there's some familiar names and faces there, and it was interesting to be a part of. Zoom's not really cut for streaming visuals as far as I can tell yet, at least especially not from a MacBook. I found it very hard. But no, I might participate in one of these ambient kind of soundscapes in the future. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. I've been trying to get my own equipment to do some Piers Ulvi live streams because I do want to play for an audience in some way. And especially doing collaborative improv like that. I've been really missing that as well.
Yeah, I think you got in on some of the sessions that Tyson was doing in the past year, right? I think Tyson mentioned you coming out a couple of times.
Yeah. That was for, I guess the main one was Infinite Monotremes. Yeah, exactly. The one I came out for. Or as a part of. Why don't we're almost near the end of our time. Why don't you play us your final song?
Okie dokie. So this one is also the final song on the album. It's one that I've kind of challenged myself to relearn because I wrote it like 4 years ago. So I'm going to pull the lyrics up just as a little crutch for myself here. But
Oh, you don't need to tell us that.
yeah, I'm honest. It's great. So this one is called Us. And it's a reflection on the complex, sometimes maddening and confusing and eluding nature of humans and how we interact with each other. And it requires a capo. So give me a sec here. There we go. And a song I think I was inspired a lot by. It doesn't sound like it, but some Leonard Cohen songs really spoke to me at this time. And got me thinking and writing this one. So yeah, without further ado, this one is called Us. Still in tune. All right. Won't be what you expect. Your eyes see, oh, just a speck of it. It won't be what you thought. Ain't it all been one big experiment? And you don't see how it collects in all the places you wouldn't think to check. And I don't flee from any regret. Nobody here has figured it all out yet. There's some of it that we'll never get. Don't wait up for it. Don't wait up for it. And I don't need to know for sure. Understanding, you know, it's not pure. It won't be what you thought. Less wrong, it's the best that we got. You don't know anything about everything. You don't know anything about everything. One day you'll play the idiot. Don't wait up for it. Take the time to think this through. It's baffling. It's maddening. It's confusing. It's eluding. Scratching, understanding, but the eyes are so demanding. In the clouds but never landing. It's us. It's us. It's us. It's us. It's confusing and eluding. In the clouds but never landing. Oh, so consuming. It's us. It's us.
That was Basal here on the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope on CFRU 93.3 FM. Peter, this has been a great time talking with you and hearing your music in its raw form. I can't wait to listen to your new album, or your first album.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, why don't you tell our good sentries when we can get the album and where we can find it and where we can find you?
So I just got the email earlier today that DistroKid has uploaded my album to all of the basic, streaming platforms available currently. So whether it's Spotify or iTunes, you can find it there June 1st under BASAL for Basal and Recursive without an E. So RECURSIV. that's going to be there. However, Bandcamp also June 1st. If you want to support me a little bit more directly, give Spotify a little bit less of a cut and me a bit more of a cut, then that'll also be available June 1st. And on June 5th, I believe Bandcamp is doing a day where artists get 100% of whatever you throw their way.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Bandcamp is foregoing that cut, which is a very cool move on them. They've done that a couple times now. Very awesome. And yeah, everywhere June 1st.
And hopefully this will be broadcasted on June 1st, so it should be available right now.
Hey, available everywhere today.
So now where can we find Basal and Fractal Sound?
So they're both under the Fractal Sound domain name. So you can find that at fractalsound, fractalsound.ca. And then there's a subsection for my musical project, Basal. I haven't decided if Fractal Sound is going to be only the visual or if it's just going to be the name of this kind of umbrella production house that I'm doing. So everything's kind of under that umbrella right now, at least.
Awesome. One last question. Do you have any words of wisdom you would like to relay to us?
I mentioned Nietzsche earlier today, but there's I'm going to paraphrase this from his book Human, All Too Human. He said the mark of a good artist isn't always putting out good art. It's being able to discern the good stuff from the crap. And don't be too hard on yourself. There's going to be a lot of crap that comes out. Try your best to be discerning. Try your best to be honest with yourself.
Those are great words, Peter. Thank you again.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Spin me your lips, outline your hips, rise dip, learn to set it on fire. The cedars sang while the willows hung. Circle and swung, but it had to fall down to your feet. Cruel gravity. Grass dancing, the leaves fell, and you still had to leave. I am still knocked to my knees. Mention my name and watch me change. I am still knocked. I am still knocked. I am still knocked. I am still knocked. I am still. I am still. I am still knocked to my knees. I am still knocked from my feet. I am still. I am still. The cedars sang while the willows hung. The circle had swung. not one to plead. I know my name. I am still not to my knees. From my feet, I am still knocked to my knees. I am still knocked from my feet. I am still